she told me, she said, you got 2 loose screws. My biggest fear is falling. Nobody wants to fall. That's what I'm going to do.
What you want to do? Let's talk about it.
I'm going to Disneyland. I'd never unpack that suitcase because I know I'd be gone. I might even go to Houston. What I'm probably most proud of is that I haven't let any mobility issues or any pain or any not so good days stop me from getting up, getting dressed, and getting out of that house and going about my business like I would have normally.
Welcome to the Rise and Recover podcast. I'm Dr. Casey Coleman. I'm your physical therapist, and I'm the founder of Rise and Recover Rehab. I created Rise and Recover Rehab to specifically focus on helping adults who are 45 years and older get out of pain and recover from injury. But I specifically want to help the adults who have this desire to be active and healthy enough to fully enjoy the life they work so hard to get. Because I owe a huge part of my success to the stories, the advice, the wisdom given to me by my older patients and clients. And that's why I want to help you all. Because you didn't give so much of your time and body to everyone else, and you didn't work this hard your entire life just to reminisce about the past. You worked that hard to be active and healthy enough to make new memories as well. So if getting old is getting old, go to riseandrecoverrehab.com to get started with us today. Because you deserve a body that allows you to fully enjoy the rest of your life. Enjoy the show. Welcome everyone to the Rise and Recover podcast. I'm Casey Coleman. I'm a physical therapist and the founder of Rise and Recover Rehab. This is the first episode with the guest of the Rise and Recover podcast, so I'm super excited. We're going to go through some questions. We're going to have some fun, and we're just going to have a conversation about how people go from where they are to being more mobile, recover from injuries, their life, their expectations, the memories they want to make, and everything in between. So enjoy the show. On this episode, I have a patient that I've been seeing for the last 5-ish years or something like that. It's been a while, so it's only fitting. Since 2018, so it's only fitting that I have Mr. Marvin Bragg here on the show. So thank you so much for joining. But before we start, how are you doing today? What's been going on? Give us a little background on how you're doing.
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. Happy Sunday.
You can hold them.
I'm doing pretty good. Happy Sunday. Hey, the sun is shining. It's 72 degrees outside, according to my car.
On March 3rd.
On March 3rd, 72 degrees. It'll probably snow come Monday or Tuesday. But, hey, we're here today. Just happy to be on this side of life.
I agree. So first question I have of the podcast for today is just some basic information, some basic background so the listeners can kind of understand the context of where this conversation is coming from. So just give us the background on how old you are, where you're from, and whatever else you'd like to share.
Well, funny you should ask, but I'm 74 years old, just made 74 a couple weeks ago, and from Chicago, by way of Tennessee, I guess. But I've lived in Chicago most of my life and been many places, but, I always make my way back to Chicago because I just like Chicago. I could go on and on, but, I like Chicago.
Why do you like Chicago? What is it about Chicago?
I like Chicago because to me Chicago is an easy city to get around, and I guess if you have a number sense, you can figure out where you're going or where you're at. It's not like a lot of cities that may have the same address on all 4 sides of the city, whereas Chicago is really not like that. You can travel, and as long as you have a number sense and you see the numbers on the houses or the buildings, you can just about figure out where you are, whether you have a navigation system or not. So I like Chicago for that. I like Chicago because I guess all my life I've always heard that people say that, if you can make it in Chicago, you can make it anywhere. So, I admit you have to be kind of tough-skinned, but it's easier to make it in Chicago, I believe, than it is to make it in a lot of a lot of other places because there are a lot of things going on in Chicago, and even though you might hear a lot of things on the news about Chicago, Chicago is still a good place, and I think there's crime everywhere. There's no such thing as a good city or a good neighborhood or anything like that. So Chicago has its share, but a lot of times they seem to try to highlight the negative things about Chicago, but there are so many positive things about Chicago, and even the people that travel here will tell you the same thing.
100%.
A lot of good things about Chicago. So I'm a Chicagoan, and I guess I'll be here for the rest of my life. I don't know though. It's getting to the point that being older, I would like to be in a warmer climate, and having arthritis and stuff like that. They say that warmer climates are better for that, but
So you got to go down to Houston.
no, I don't know about Houston, but I'm thinking about I don't mind a hot place, but a dry heat is what I like. I think Houston is kind of moist. Houston is moist. I need something. That's totally dry.
I see. So out west somewhere. Okay.
Maybe, and even east. I could see myself in Georgia somewhere or Carolina, but yeah, I think I'd love to be out west. I'd love to be in California, but it's just so expensive.
Yeah. Yeah. I like it. So before we move on to the next question, you talked about some positive things about Chicago. What are some of the positive things for people who are not from Chicago?
That are not from Chicago?
Mm-hmm. Like, what are some positive things that they wouldn't know, or positive things you like about?
Well, like I said, the most positive thing is the fact that if you come here, you can easily get around. If you have an address, it's not hard to find. There's a lot of nightlife. There's a lot of things that people travel here and they go to Navy Pier and places like that. And, there's a lot of fun things to do, especially, starting about April, May. That's the only thing about Chicago, too. Our summer is so short,
Except this year.
Except for this year, we having summer right now. This week we have summer, winter, fall, and spring all within the same week. But and I think that has a lot to do, they say, with global warming. But when I was little, summer was summer, and it lasted a couple months. Then fall was a couple months. Then came winter. It was a couple months. Then spring was a couple months. Now it's just, it's all together. But I think that the people that come here, especially those that come here during the late spring, summer, and early fall, will find that it's a real nice place to be. It's not too hot, it's not too cold, and just so many things to do in Chicago. And I think that somebody that's not from Chicago would really enjoy that, the fact that there are things to do, and you can get around.
True.
Even if you got to take a bus, you can get around.
That's true. So I guess you guys got to come to our Chicago location at Rise and Recover Rehab just to come visit, get your treatment done. Then it's a tourist attraction. Do all the fun stuff. So
if I didn't live in Chicago, if I was in California, I'd get on that plane, I'd get on that 747, and I'd come right here.
Just in the summertime or when it's warm, right?
Yeah.
That's true. I agree. But give us a little background, whatever you're comfortable with sharing, as to what your mobility or injury problems was/is, and all that stuff, and kind of how it occurred and everything.
Okay, well, I guess my quote-unquote injury goes back, I'd say, really goes back, my mobility issues go back to probably about 2018 when I had a very, very, very serious back surgery. It was my second surgery, so I had a fusion with metal. Okay, and then the surgeon at St. Joseph's Hospital, he told me, he said, well, I can take away all your pain, I can straighten you up, you'll be like new, all you got to do is have this surgery. Okay, me being pretty gullible, I'm thinking, oh, this is what I've been praying for. I mean, if somebody can make me brand new and fix my back, and I can be 25 again, I'm gonna go for it. So he talked me into it, and I had the surgery, and the rest, in my opinion, was kind of downhill. It started out okay. I had physical therapy at home, and after a couple weeks of at home therapy, they said, well, you should be able to travel outside and go to therapy. So, I started going to therapy, and I guess for a while in the very beginning, uh, it was all pretty good. It seemed like I said, well, I guess the surgeon was telling the truth. That's what's going to happen. I'm going to be moving around, and I'll be like new. Well, didn't quite work out like that. I find that I was having pain, you know, in my back, and first I started out, with a walker at home, and I'm thinking, well, hey, it's just not me. I'm not going to be on a walker. So I graduated from a walker, and I got a cane, and it just seemed like that I just couldn't. I don't know if it's. I think it's because of the scaffolding, as it was described to me, that's in my back. I just couldn't. It's like the scaffolding was. I don't know if the scaffolding was straight because, the more I think about it, if the scaffolding had been straight, it seemed like I would have been straight. But the scaffolding wasn't quite as straight as I think it was. So I went back to the surgeon. Maybe this was probably after the first year, and we sat down and we talked, and he told me that he just outright asked me. He said, I told him my issues. He said, "Well, would you be willing to have another surgery?" I'm thinking, no, I don't want another surgery because I think that back surgery, the worst surgery was the knee surgery, but that back surgery had to rate as the most invasive and hard surgery that I had had. So, and I had kind of conquered the initial feelings of the surgery, and I just couldn't think about having another surgery at the time. So I said no, and we had a little visit, and he told me, keep up with the therapy, and which I did. And my general practitioner sent me to a pain doctor. And so each doctor now, it's not like it used to be. Each doctor now, you're in a system. So they look at their computer, and they can tell you all the things that are going on with your body, and the things that other doctors have said. And this pain doctor, even though that was another story too towards the end, but yeah, I think you remember that.
Yeah.
But that was another story. But I mean, she had her good parts. She told me, she said, you got two loose screws. I said, loose screws? She said, you didn't know? She said, well, Dr. That was my surgeon, said that you had two loose screws and you refused surgery to get them fixed, which was so far from the truth. It was the truth, but it was twisted. I knew nothing about having any loose screws. I had turned down surgery, but I had turned down surgery because, he said, well, I can fix whatever's wrong. All we need is another surgery. Little did I know that I had loose screws. So I have these loose screws, and I think sometimes that is impeding my total recovery at this point. And I guess at my age, I'm just not willing to. I'm just not willing to have another surgery. I believe in the power of prayer, and I know that God is a healer. And also, I believe that. Well, you have to believe, but I believe that one day I'm gonna just get up and just head gonna be touching the ceiling without a surgery. So I just feel kind of, you know, and even though I know that I got the two loose screws, I still would not like to have another surgery because and unless you've had a surgery, do you realize how rough a surgery can be? Because somebody's got to wait on you and fix your food and bring it to you, and then you got to try to get your clothes on and off, and you know, uh, kind of presents a problem. So and anybody that's had a surgery probably tell you the same thing. No, I don't want a surgery. Surgery is like the last alternative to the whole thing.
Just have a quick follow-up question with all that. For the people wondering, how did you get to the point where you needed back surgery? What was the story up to that?
Okay, and that's a story in itself. Well, I really believe that it was kind of a hereditary thing because my mother had the same back issues. My father had back issues. My sister got back issues. So I think it was kind of hereditary. But I personally, had been in education for like 37 years, and teachers are noted for carrying bags and carrying a lot of bags and things. We load all that stuff up, and we say we're gonna work on it when we get home. So we take all those bags, we get those bags home, and we sit them at the front door, and they stay at the front door until the next day when it's time to go to work. So I think that carrying all those bags, all the weight that was probably on my shoulder and my back uh, caused problems. And I think, when we were real little, we heard that rhyme, the neck bone's connected to the backbone's connected to the hip bone's, and the rest. But I really believe that. So I believe that all the weight from those different bags that I carried on my shoulder had a lot to do with the demise of my back. And I in the beginning I would just had simple backache. A lot of people have backache, just simple backache. And I kind of ignored it and took some Tylenol, and not knowing that my back issues were from carrying a lot of weight on my shoulders. I just continued to carry bags. That was the only way I was going to get them from school to home, was to my car, was to put them on my shoulders. So I kept carrying the bags, and I guess my back started to get a little bit worse, and the lower back started hurting, pretty bad. So I would use things like icy hot and different rubs and sprays, and I laid on heating pads, and I laid on ice, and the whole 9 yards. I did everything, and it seemed like the back, it just kept getting worse and worse and worse, to the point that I had difficulty walking. So it wasn't until I had difficulty walking that I, even would consider the surgery. But talking to the surgeon, he made it seem like it would just be a piece of cake, having the surgery. So, I guess that had a lot to do with me agreeing to it, but me walking around, it wasn't going to get any better. I knew that. So, I just kind of felt, well, how bad could it be? How bad could it be? So after walking around for a couple years. And and I tell anybody, the longer you put off a surgery, the worse your situation will get. It doesn't get better, and a lot of people think, oh, it'll get better, but I know for a fact that it doesn't get better. It just progressively can get worse. But like I said, they have so many new methods out here now to treat you, before you even consider surgery. But for me, my back it was just in a condition that, after several MRIs and X-rays, they showed that, I needed the surgery, to get better.
So with that story, and my next question is kind of selfish a little bit, but it's kind of like a two-part question, depending on where you want to take it.
That's really selfish.
It's kind of like a two-part question, so take it wherever you want. But the basic question with your story and all the healthcare professionals you've seen is who has helped you the most? And it doesn't have to be PT just because I'm a PT. It could be surgeons, chiros, nurses, whoever you've seen. That's the first part. That's where you can take it one way. The second one is from who you've seen as well. This is the selfish part. What can healthcare providers do better for people in general or for people in your situation? Does that make sense? Basically, I'm asking, one, who's helped you the most, and what can healthcare providers do better?
Who's helped me the most? Good question, because over the years, and I think the back issues may have started around 1990. That's a long time.
I didn't know that.
That's 10 plus 24. That's 34 years almost. I say around 1990, and I went to a place called Illinois Bone and Back.
Oh, yeah, you did tell me about that. Yeah.
And they had a machine there that kind of put you in traction that stretched you out. And I think that I probably benefited most from a machine like that, and I really wish I had something like that now, just to stretch me out. So it stretched you out as you walked on something like a treadmill. It just stretched your whole body out. And I have been told so many times it's just a matter of the spine and the back being stretched out. And I think that was the place that I think that I probably got the most from, was the type of equipment that they had there.
So for clarification for the people listening, you were walking on a treadmill and it was like a harness.
It was a harness. It was a harness. I remember it was a harness around my waist, and there were some things that were
attached to the ceiling, yeah.
that, held you
Right, yeah.
kind of straight up as you walked. And I think that was really a good machine. Probably one of the best machines that I've been on. What was your next question?
Basically, from what you've seen throughout going through all the healthcare providers, what could we do better? to
What
help
could
people
you
in
do
your
better? See, that's a real hard question for me to ask what you could do better, because I think that at most physical therapy places that I've been to a couple, they do what they think is best for the back. The different machines, rolling the ball up the wall. I think they do what they think is best according to their level of consciousness, or what their goal is. I don't think you could do anything better than what you're doing. Uh, all I could see is that I know personally, I think I could get better if I had that machine that kind of stretched me out. That would help me better than riding a bike or doing any of the exercises that I'm doing now. Not to take anything away from the exercises that I'm doing now, they have benefit, but I guess as I think about it, that one machine I think would be good for my needs,
Right.
my personal needs.
Makes sense. Makes sense. That helps. All this time, when you told me about that machine, I thought it was because we're taught in school that it's one laying down and it pulls you in certain ways. I didn't know it was while you were walking.
No, I stood straight up when I was on it. It was like a thing that was around my waist,
Oh,
and
yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
held my arms up, and it was like a treadmill, and I kind of walked along. I mean, you could speed it up a little bit if you needed to, or you could slow it down. But the fact that it held you in place like that,
Right.
that's why I enjoyed it so much.
Gotcha. I'll have to look into a machine for you real soon.
It is. That was great.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I'd follow you to California if you got one of those.
I'm gonna look it up right after this. Be like, where's that machine? So, what are your biggest fears? What are your biggest fears about your mobility problems or injuries or anything like that? What keeps you up at night about this?
My biggest fear is falling. And most seniors will probably tell you the same thing. Nobody wants to fall because if you already have an injury, like I have a back injury, the last thing I want to do is fall, because even though I might not fall on my back, I could still hurt something that's interconnected to my back.
Right.
So my biggest thing about being with mobility issues is just trying to stay straight up. So because of that, I probably tend to look down more, which I got to stop doing, or I got to gradually start trying to change up, because I got to see what's going on at eye level, but I try to focus myself on looking down to make sure there's not a crack in the ground, or there's not some stones, or Chicago streets, a lot of times concrete can be cracked, or there can be manholes without covers. So I'm trying to cover all my bases just to make sure that I can stay upright. So that's my main focus, and that probably scares me the most. Just falling, or being in a situation where I got to get out of somewhere real quick. Like say an event of a fire, Lord forbid, but in case there was a fire and I had to get out of somewhere real quick, and those are things I think about.
That's fair. I'm gonna change my whole website page now, just from what you're telling me, because I put some stuff on there, but just hearing it, because I don't really have these conversations. I mean, we talk about a bunch of stuff when we're here in the clinic.
We don't talk about this kind of stuff,
right? With these type of questions, so that gives me a lot of insight. You mentioned before that you were like, okay, I'm praying to God and everything like that. That one day I'll just be upright. When that happens, if that happens, right? All that stuff. What do you want to do? Does that make sense? Like, what are you looking forward to if and when that were to happen?
I'm going to Disneyland. That's what I'm going to do.
What you want to do? Let's talk about it.
I'm going to Disneyland. Hey, well, I'd probably be more inclined to go on trips and go to places like Vegas that require a lot of walking. I'd just be showing out. I'd be going everywhere. Every time you see me, I'd never unpack that suitcase because I know I'd be gone.
I love it.
I might even go to Houston.
For those listening, why we keep mentioning Houston is because it's an inside joke we've had for the last couple of months.
Yeah, but the in all sincerity, uh, I'd just be walking around. I'd be walking everywhere. As far as exercise, I'd probably do some exercise walking. They say that walking is the best, some of the best exercise. I'd probably be doing stuff like that. I'd be moving around. I'd park my car and I'd be gone.
Be out of here. I love it. I love it. So Vegas, Houston, where else?
Well, of course I go to California.
Actually, I got a better question at the end for that. So hold it. Think about it a little bit, but I got a better question at the end for that. But before we get there, next question is, since 1990, 2018, whatever, however you want to take this question, what has changed, or has anything changed since you've been working on your mobility, doing exercises, coming to PT on and off? What has changed in your life since working on your issue?
What has changed in my life? Nothing has changed in my life. Well, I've been going to PT now for quite some time, so I go a couple weeks. So I go a couple times a week, but the only thing that has changed is basically, I guess, when I'm at home, I'm always conscious of some of the activities and things that I do in PT. So I find myself, trying to do some of those things at home. And I guess before that, I didn't do anything at home, but I try to do some things at home, and that's really different. That's really different. That's about the only thing that's really different.
I got a follow-up question to that. So if you were to think about it, of course, it's hypothetical. If you were to not do anything at home, since you said that's what changed in your life, do you think your life would be the same, better, or worse? Does that make sense? So you're doing a little bit at home.
I think it would be the same. You say if I wasn't doing the
Right, so-
exercises.
Right, so you were saying you were doing some stuff at home.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to think about if you were not doing anything, would getting around the house be harder, about the same, and better?
Well, as long as I was coming to physical therapy a couple times a week, I don't think things would be any harder.
Okay.
Because I'm not sure what I do at home is as beneficial as what I do in actual PT.
Okay.
So I don't think that it would be a heck of a lot different.
Cool. Good. I got so many ideas and plans from this convo.
Really?
Yeah, I do. We'll talk about it after, or maybe on this podcast. We'll see. But this helps a lot. So I'm going to change my questions a little bit because we got through the history, some PT stuff, some mobility stuff for this podcast. But why I'm going into these next questions now is because, of course, we have more conversations here than just about injuries and knees and backs. We talk about a lot.
Everything from A to Z.
We talk about a lot.
For a minute, then you disappear. So
And I've said this on the intro to the podcast and even on my website that a lot of the success that I have today is because of conversations with you and some other patients where I've just listened and I've been like, oh, I should do that. I shouldn't do that. Maybe I should start now. Maybe I should wait. So this is where these next questions are coming from, to help other people listening to this, or to help, people your age kind of reflect on it and help yourself or help other people. So with that said, let's start with this one. What did you think was important when you were younger, but no longer believe is important now? I'll ask it again. What did you think, or what did you believe was important when you were younger versus now when you're like, it's not really that important?
Continuing education as far as college is concerned, I thought was absolutely necessary in life for you to be successful, to have anything, to do anything, to go anywhere. I thought they told us you go to college, you got people knocking at your door to try to give you a good job. And I found that all to be not true. Uh, College is not for everybody. There's a lot of people out here that have not gone to college a day in their life that have led very successful, lucrative lives. So I no longer believe that you have to go sit up in a college. But I do believe that you need uh, some kind of life skill that'll help you get at least an entry level position in a company, or will help you as far as a trade is concerned. So, okay, even though I don't believe in that 4-year institutions are necessarily necessary, I do believe that there's nothing wrong with getting into a 12-month program or 18-month program or something that will give you some kind of skill that will help you get a job, or get something out here that will help enhance your life some kind of way. So to kind of talk about that question, just sum that up, I just don't believe that education in a institution is necessarily necessary like I did when I was younger. But I'm glad that I believed in it when I was younger, because if I hadn't believed in it when I was younger, I would have never went to college or got any degrees or anything. So I'm glad that I believed in it then, but after going through it and then going to school, going back to school again when I was maybe late 50s, 58, 59, yeah, maybe 57, I think. Going back to school then, I just don't believe that. And when I went to school then, I said, this is the very last time I'm going to school. I went to school then, and I see that now you just don't have to. You just don't have to. And, a lot of parents force their kids. I was looking at a show just last night where they were people were forcing their daughter to go to a college. She didn't want to go to college. She wanted to be an actor or be an actress or something like that. And I guess they kept saying, well, hey, you got to have a backup plan. That's real nice wanting to be an actress, but you need to go to school and get an education so that at least you have that under your belt. And as I was looking at that, I'm sorry. As I was looking at that, I kept thinking, well, even though this is just a television show, I can understand where she's coming from, but at her young age, I don't think she really knows what she's talking about. But being older and having gone through it and all, I can say that she had an excellent point, but her parents also had a good point too. Right. Like, you need to go to school and get yourself an education, because you can get out there and be an actress and all of a sudden one day it doesn't work. Right. Or, it's like anything else. I look at, my son choosing to be a truck driver, and hey, I wish I could have made the money that he's made. He's made some really good money being a truck driver, but who's to say one day that, because he has back issues too, who's to say one day that he can't drive a truck? Then what? He got nothing to fall back on, because that's what he's done all his life. So having an education even though you may not end up with a job equal to the money that you paid for that education, it's still important to me. It's important, but not absolutely necessary.
Mm.
But I do think that everybody should, if you don't plan on getting an education, you should get some kind of skill.
So
Some
be
kind of skill.
so be educated in something, but that doesn't
In
mean you have to
something.
go to school for.
You don't have to
Traditional
go to a
school.
4-year traditional college or
Right.
stay in school for 6 years. If that makes sense, what I'm saying.
Yeah, that makes sense. Next question is, do you have any regrets? Or if you do, what are your biggest regrets?
Regrets about
Anything.
Well, let's see. The only regrets that I may have, and I think most people have these same regrets, is that when I was younger, I didn't recognize the importance of planning for your life later.
Mm.
I didn't know the importance. When I was 23, 25, 30 years old, retirement seemed like it was way, way, way away.
Right.
Whereas I think I was telling you this. I said, hey, I admire you young guys that are doing something now, because age 60 will hit you before you know it. And you don't want to wait until then to start thinking about, saying to yourself, if I coulda, woulda, shoulda, because it's kind of late at that point. And there are so many seniors that I've ran into that work and don't know when they'll be able to stop working
Mm.
because they didn't have anything to fall back on. I work just because I want to. And it gives me something to do, and it gets me out of the house, and I don't have to worry about the honey-do list, or nothing,
If you don't work out there,
Not
she'll
to
make you
say
work.
that when I'm at work, I don't think about it, but, a lot of people, they did not plan when they were young. They didn't worry about, having a job that had a retirement program or benefits, or get into 401ks, or stuff like that. When I was coming along, we didn't get a lot of counseling or a lot of guidance as far as the things that you should do in life, whereas people do now. So that's why so many older people my age don't have as much as younger people are going to have when they get to be this age, because young people are investing. They're doing all kind of things.
It's easier for us now too, though, because when I think about it, you had to do this paperwork, go to the bank. It's a whole different world, though. So you gotta give yourself some slack a little.
Right, because see, we didn't have all that. We didn't have
Right.
computers. We couldn't look up things. We didn't know about things. We didn't network to find out things, because you ask somebody about something, people would, oh, you may end up with $2 more than I got. And the biggest thing I learned in life, one of the biggest things, and I try to tell this to people, but they don't listen. People want to see you do well, but they don't want to see you do better than them. They want to see you do well, but they don't want to see you do better than them. You watch the people when you're in a room that don't clap for your successes or have nothing positive to say, because they're really upset that they didn't do some of those things, or they didn't have some of those things. Because, see, we have what I consider to be the haves and the have-nots. The have-nots want to have the same thing that the haves have. but they don't want to go about the same way of getting it that the haves did. The haves worked hard. Look at you, prime example. Look how many days a week you work now.
Mm-hmm.
You're probably busier now than you were when you were at ATI
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like
during the
7 days a
week.
Yeah.
So it's like me, since I retired, and it was my second retirement, I find myself busier now than I was when I worked a regular job.
Mm.
But hey, you just like me, you almost had to make a new life for yourself when you started doing these different things. So you were so busy, to a traditional 9 to 5, even though yours wasn't actually 9 to 5, it was 7 to 3 or 4 to midnight or something
40
like
plus
that.
hours a week. Yeah, exactly.
But all of a sudden you find yourself, you got to be here, you got to be there. You almost need a little notebook to make sure.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Because trying to keep everything up in your head, not going to work. I don't care what age you are.
Yeah.
You almost got to write stuff down. Like you said, you had to be at somebody's house yesterday. I'm sure you had to write that down.
Yep.
And a couple days before, you had to look at all that stuff to make sure you had everything down pat. You didn't have two things scheduled at the same time, or you allowed enough time to get from down in the city to out to wherever you had to go to, and so
The haves have to work, is what I'm hearing.
they have to work. We gotta work. So and what's so funny is all these places I pass by, they have all these hiring signs. Hiring. We're hiring. We're hiring. My question is, the people that had these jobs before the pandemic, what are they doing now?
That's a good question.
What are they doing now? I was talking to a pharmacist at CVS, and he was telling me he can't get anybody that wants to work. I'm thinking, that's really something. Can't get anybody that wants to work. I would think there would be people rushing up here trying to get these jobs. But he said they don't want to work. And I've heard that before at other places. They have these signs up, they don't want to work. But after, the extra money was cut off, the unemployment was cut off, what are they doing now for money?
Never know. Never know. That could be a whole different
I saw that look on your face when you said that. Well, you never really know what they're doing. Like, I got an idea, but I'm keeping that to myself. But I'm gonna just say you never really know.
That's an off-camera conversation. That's our usual.
Exactly.
But my next question is what? So we talked about regrets. What are you most proud of yourself for? Like looking back, okay, you didn't do this.
What I'm probably most proud of, other than still being on this side of life, is that I haven't let any mobility issues or any pain or any not so good days stop me from getting up, getting dressed, and getting out of that house and going about my business like I would have normally. I don't sit around and say, oh, I can't do this. I can't do that. I don't feel like doing this. I can't get out of my car and walk into Walmart. I get up and do whatever I got to do. I don't have anybody, helping me out or, waiting on me or helping me. I'm proud that I get up and do it by myself and independent, I guess, like my mother taught me to be. I do what I got to do. It may take me a little bit longer because it takes a long time getting these clothes on. Takes a long time getting them off. So that means that I'm going to keep them on as long as I can and do as many things as I can out in the street while I'm out here. But, all jokes aside, and
Mm.
hey, I guess I'm proud of the fact that I haven't become depressed or let anything keep me from just getting up and showing up.
You talked earlier about traveling to all these places and stuff, and I said I was going to get back to that question. So the last question is about memories, because usually people, especially when I talk to older patients, they reminisce about the past, which is understandable. But I'm like, well, what do you still want to do? You can still do a lot of stuff, especially when we get you moving and better and all that stuff. So for you, what new memories do you still want to make?
Well, new memories. The only real memory that I'd like to make is me being totally mobile, upright, not worrying about what's on the ground, and during the summer, probably having a more extensive garden than I have in the last couple years. I'd like to go all out and do all, you know. But when you have an extensive garden, it requires a lot of, getting up on step stools and do, moving around, and it requires. You hardly catch a person that has mobility issues with an extensive garden. A person with most mobility issues may have a little small section that they're trying to grow, but I'd like to be upright, feeling good, my back not hurting, and just being able to uh, just plant all kind of stuff. Maybe even have a little greenhouse that I could take care of and do all that stuff. But right now, you know, I wouldn't bite off, more than I could chew by doing something like that. But in the future, before I leave this earth, I would like to uh, be completely mobile and have a really big garden, you know, that I could take care of without having to sit down every so often because my back is hurting.
Mm, that's amazing. I showed you my mom's garden here and there as well. So I got a spot for plants and gardening and all that. So with this new treatment style, I might have done it on you once, but I'm gonna have to get you to my downtown office to really put it into practice for you, so we can get you that extensive garden where you
Yeah,
want.
because I think I need a little bit more than what's here.
So thanks for sharing about your memories, because that's powerful. Because I'm gonna start asking a lot of people that, especially here, because I don't think they think about it too much. If I'm kind of hypothesizing correctly, but thanks for sharing about your
But
memories and being
quiet as
everything.
kept. Each, maybe not this long, but each person that comes in for therapy, you almost need to have this,
Oh yeah.
an in-depth conversation with them
Hmm.
just to find out some things, like you learned about that machine, me talking about that machine,
Right.
and a lot of other things you probably learned
Oh yeah.
that we probably don't get to talk about.
Yeah, yeah. And I try to do it, but definitely having this conversation with you has helped me narrow or direct my questions differently than I had in the past. Because there's only so much we can do, in an hour in an eval. So over the other visits, I dig deeper into their goals and their questions and their background stories to make sure I know what they really want, not just what they're telling
To
me.
determine what type of service they probably need.
Right,
That
right.
would help.
Because they can say, oh, I want to be better, but I can go deeper and be like, well, what does that mean to you?
Yeah,
Does
well,
that mean
better is a
garden?
real broad term.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's why those questions were powerful, at least for me as well. So
Everybody wants to be better.
exactly, exactly. But thank you again for taking time out of your Sunday to come in and do this first podcast and be the first guest on the Rise and Recover podcast.
No problem.
But if people want to ask you more questions, what are you comfortable with? Should they reach out to me? I reach out to you. Is there somewhere they should follow you or get to know you? What are you comfortable with?
I'm comfortable with either. I wouldn't mind people reaching out to me to ask me, especially questions about. I like to talk about back surgeries and things because, a lot of people have misconceptions about back surgeries, and all I can say is that surgeries differ from person to person. Everybody's results are totally different. I had somebody, a family member say to me recently that having back issues, no, I don't want to have a back surgery because, I wouldn't want to end up like you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I could have been offended, but I wasn't offended. But I'm thinking to myself, well, you can't base your outcome by my outcome, because you could be totally different.
True. Very true. So I'll put your email in the description and everything like that. And if you guys want to reach out, feel free to reach out. But thank you again for listening to the first podcast of the Rise and Recover podcast. And we'll see you on the next one. To book an appointment, virtual, talk to me more about how I can get you better, go to riseandrecoverrehab.com. Click the links, follow the website, and we'll have a discussion so I can help you get back to what you want to do and help you make new memories as well. So see you on the next podcast. Thank you so much for listening to the Rise and Recover podcast. I hope you enjoyed the show. And if you did and you're interested in getting out of pain, improving your mobility, and recovering from injury, go to riseandrecoverrehab.com and schedule a free visit so we can figure out how to get you better in the least amount of time with the least amount of visits. Because you deserve a body that allows you to fully enjoy the rest of your life. So if getting old is getting old, I can't wait to help you be active and healthy enough to make new memories. See you on the next episode, and see you at Rise and Recover Rehab.